So they have the form but without the substance. This is what you were talking about with implementation ability. So if we just give them $1.5 billion under the Lugar-Kerry bill, we've got to make sure that there's capacity to spend it properly. But I do think it's far more important to provide economic aid than to provide F-16s for the war against India, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Not only, it's a quality, it's a quantity and a quality issue, right? Not only how much money, but what do you do with it? How does it actually get done? We reached this up until last year. We were starting to develop these strategies, such as reconstruction opportunity zones in the Fatah region, and aid packages for that part of Pakistan. And then the situation became unstable. We wound up with this sort of vicious circle where we had a stability plan, but it was too unstable in the area to actually implement the stability plan. That's kind of still where we're stuck right now. Even many Pakistanis won't go in. There are many Pakistanis, whether you're Punjabi or otherwise, you stick out like a sore thumb there, and you might as well be American. You're sort of DOA. So that is kind of a trap that we're in right now. The only way to unlock that or to break that cycle is to do if you heard of PRTs, provincial reconstruction teams in Afghanistan, small groups of civilian military who go out into remote areas and try and work with the locals to build a little bit of stability, get some projects going, hand out some cash, create some jobs. Pakistan doesn't have that, but if Pakistanis ran their own PRTs, a combination of police, frontier corps, and civilians, supported by the government with some technical expertise, if they went in and started to jumpstart a little bit of economic activity and reconstruction, then you could kind of break the hold of the Taliban in some of those areas. Otherwise, you won't do it. Otherwise, you have nothing. Either you're going in there and you're agitating for some kind of positive change, or you're giving up and you're seeing. It's your choice, but it's not rocket science. It's one or the other.
It's a very tough battle because if the army goes in, as they seem to be doing, and take Bunair and Dur and Shangri-La and maybe even the SWAT back, what's the follow-up? If there's no follow-up with these PRTs, then forget it. And also, I can't get over this taxi driver this morning, this Pakistani taxi driver kept telling me, this Sharia law is a very compelling selling point for the Pashtun in these areas. Even this guy complained about British women, British wives, the way they can commit adultery. We need Sharia law here in the UK. There is a sense that Sharia law is a black and white law, and it works, and people behave better when they know the rules. And this is something that's going to be very difficult to beat back.
I'll just make two quick additional points, because you did emphasize economic investment in education. We tend to have an economic aid policy, an education policy, and put some money into the economic thing, some money into the education thing. The result is what you have in the Arab world, where you have universities, institutions, and lots of graduates who have absolutely no jobs to get. In countries where there is this kind of existential crisis, let's talk about this as radically as it should be talked about, which is the fact that there is no point in having an education policy in the country that is not directly feeding into an economic strategy. When a situation is that severe, that is what you need to do. Don't need lots of people reading poetry right now. We need lots of 2-week-long programs in cement mixing. And I'm talking about for hundreds of thousands of people. If you do not take that approach, you are really not addressing well. Because if you can say, on the one hand, you believe it's existential, well, then you better be thinking of a radical solution in which everything is geared towards contributing to fixing the economic situation. And that means literally taking control of the education system is saying, what are we going to do with this right now? So no liberal arts, just vocational work. Make people cogs and give them jobs so that you can potentially stem some of
Parag, wouldn't it be easier to inoculate a young Pakistani from the Taliban kind of madrasa, black and white, to teach somebody a little poetry so they understand the nuances, so they're more tolerant of differences. That doesn't lead to economic development, but it maybe inoculates people from joining.
Well, what we're actually been trying to do for a decade now is a whole madrasa reform sort of agenda for Pakistan, in which in many of the madrasas, they begin to bring in some computers and teach them math, teach them science, and not just Quranic recitation and things like that. That would be an interesting way to broaden the curriculum. You also have the rise of private education, which is the fastest growing form of primary and secondary education in Pakistan. Just private schools where you pay whatever the tuition is, and you learn a few basic skills, and so that maybe you can work as a phone operator, call center, or whatever the case may be. That kind of thing is coming up as well. We need to support all those things. Basically, stop pretending that you are in a utopian blank slate where let's create a national educational system and a national curriculum that will serve all the people. Don't kid yourself. Okay, you've got a lot of students out there who are not in school, who need some very basic skills to contribute to saving their country, and any and all means of doing that are fair game at this point.
You mentioned how Pakistan, basically the media is quite open, and the fact that you have all these, there's this tremendous amount of urbanization, and it's basically the formula for new leaders to emerge, or for like a new individual to emerge who might guide the country in a new direction. But I mean, do you really think that's a realistic solution, or I mean, does the combination of urbanization versus like an open media lead to that? Because I mean, right now, in order to facilitate like any leader, you have to have education, you have to have like a substantial amount of excellent education, which Pakistan lacks. I mean, I personally don't believe that a leader can emerge from, at least in Pakistan, can emerge from like the ranks of the people and guide the country to like prosperity. Wouldn't it be a better idea to stick with, for example, the classes like the Bhuttos, the Chundrikars, or the Khans, or whoever they are? Because I mean, they're the only ones who have the financial resources, or I guess the means to send their kids or the individuals they know abroad to receive, or like even to national universities in Karachi to receive excellent educations, which might help them like lead the country in the future.
Good question. I think you've kind of answered it. I don't think I could really add anything more to it. This urbanization slash demagoguery slash irresponsible media I've kind of picked up a few things in the course of my interviews with people and put them together, but it's really a hypothesis. I can't prove that combination of urbanization, where you have a lot of working poor, very poor people coming into the cities, and the ability of a silver-tongued speaker to mesmerize them. And finally, with a GDP of $1,000 per, which is the average GDP, that's not enough to give the person a real stake in the system, and that is too little. It will allow them to follow any messiah that comes, and even if it's against their own economic interests. So until they get the GDP up to $3,000, you have this danger of, nothing to lose, but follow whoever.
I think this perfect segue to what I wanted to say, and it's something that's kind of been tugging at me. When am I going to fit this in? The two words that have not been uttered this entire evening are Saudi Arabia. It's really impossible to explain what is wrong with Pakistan without understanding the role of Saudi Arabia over the decades, which considers Pakistan to be its Sunni project, its power projection. When Pakistan tested nuclear weapons, some said this is the Islamic bomb, and Saudi Arabia allegedly financed that nuclear weapons program. And Saudi Arabia outspends us in our aid in Pakistan by I don't even know what factor, because we can't even track the way in which Saudi charities, Wahhabist groups spend that money and where they spend it. Everyone has heard of Greg Mortensen and his bestseller, 3 Cups of Tea. How many people got to the end where he says, after I did all this backbreaking labor and built this one school, in that span of time, 20 Saudi funded madrasas went up in the country. So you really have to not only look at urban areas, where is this money being spent, who's spending it, what are they spending it on, and how is it shaping the kind of hearts and minds situation in the country. There should be no doubt in anyone's mind that the West, America, the liberal agenda, the government, the Pakistani government is being outspent by Saudi Arabia right now in terms of shaping the sort of religious, mental fabric in some of the important parts of the country that we're dealing with right now. And if we don't deal with that, and I mean by dealing directly with Saudi Arabia and dealing with Saudi Arabia in Pakistan, and Pakistan doing something about its own Saudiization, we're never going to solve this.
Well, we're way over time, but please join me in thanking Parag and Jonathan for